She quietly paid for the stranger's breakfast and walked away without a glance back. He was speechless. The woman who asked nothing had suddenly become everything, making him determined to find her again. But before we dive into the full story, let me know where you're watching from and what time it is. Now, subscribe to the channel and let's get started. Rain pounded mercilessly against the windows of Della's Diner, a modest establishment tucked between a laundromat and a second-hand bookstore on the less glamorous side of Atlanta. The weather matched Kayla Thompson's mood perfectly as she nursed a cup of lukewarm coffee. Her social worker's salary stretched thin yet again this month. The 28-year-old sat alone in a corner booth, her dark curls pulled back in a practical bun, eyes fixed on a stack of case files she'd brought home despite her supervisor's warnings about burnout. The bell above the door jingled, and a gust of wind blew in along with a tall man in a drenched gray hoodie. Kayla glanced up briefly, noting how the stranger seemed oddly out of place despite his casual attire. There was something in his posture, perhaps, or the way his eyes quickly assessed the room, a confidence that didn't quite match his soaked appearance. Della, the 60-something owner with dyed red hair and permanent smile lines, greeted him with her usual warmth. "Terrible night to be out, honey. Take any seat you like." The man chose the counter, 2 stools down from an elderly regular who was focused intently on his meatloaf special. Kayla returned to her files, the stories of struggling families and at-risk children pulling her attention back where it belonged. Mrs. Abernathy's 5 children needed winter coats. The Gonzalez family was facing eviction after their father's injury at the construction site. Teenage Marcus had missed 3 mandated counseling sessions in a row. "What do you mean my card was declined?" The stranger's voice cut through Kayla's concentration. It wasn't loud, but something in his tone, surprise mixed with embarrassment, made her look up. "I'm sorry, sir. I ran it twice." Della's voice was apologetic. "Maybe try another card?" The man patted his pockets, a flush creeping up his neck. "I must have grabbed the wrong wallet when I changed. I don't have another one with me." Kayla watched the scene unfold, recognizing the universal human dread of public financial embarrassment. The man's discomfort stirred something in her. How many times had she sat with clients as they faced much worse humiliations? Before she could second-guess herself, Kayla was on her feet, approaching the counter. "I'll cover it," she said simply, pulling her well-worn wallet from her bag. Both Della and the stranger turned to her with matching expressions of surprise. "That's really not necessary," the man said, his voice a pleasant baritone despite his obvious discomfort. Kayla offered a small smile. "I know it's not necessary, but we all forget our wallets sometimes." She handed Della her credit card, knowing full well that the $24.87 charge would mean adjusting her grocery budget for the week. "Consider it my good deed for the day." The stranger studied her face with an intensity that made Kayla slightly uncomfortable. His eyes were a striking shade of blue, contrasting with his dark hair now plastered to his forehead from the rain. "Thank you," he said finally, his expression softening. "I'm Liam." "Kayla," she replied, then gestured to her booth. "You're welcome to join me if you'd like. I've been staring at these files too long anyway." Something flickered across Liam's face. Surprise, perhaps, or curiosity. After a moment's hesitation, he gathered his plate and followed her to the booth. "Social worker?" he asked, nodding toward her files as he sat across from her. "That obvious, huh?" Kayla carefully closed the confidential documents. What gave it away? The perpetually worried expression or the coffee addiction? Liam's smile transformed his face, creating subtle dimples on both cheeks. The files labeled Department of Family and Children's Services might have been a clue. Kayla laughed, feeling some of the day's tension ease from her shoulders. "So much for my air of mystery. Yes, I work with families and children in crisis. Not the most glamorous job, but necessary. I'd say it's one of the most important jobs there is," Liam replied, his tone sincere as he took a bite of his club sandwich. What made you choose social work? The question was common enough, but something in his genuine interest made Kayla answer honestly rather than with her usual polite deflection. I grew up in the system, foster care from age 7 until I aged out. Had one social worker, Mrs. Landry, who actually treated me like a person, not just a case number. She changed my life. Kayla shrugged, suddenly self-conscious. I wanted to be that person for somebody else. Liam's expression shifted, the casual curiosity replaced by something deeper. That's remarkable. How long have you been doing it? 6 years. Some days are better than others. Kayla took a sip of her now cold coffee. What about you? What do you do when you're not forgetting your wallet in the rain? A strange tension crossed Liam's features. There and gone so quickly, Kayla wondered if she'd imagined it. I'm in business management, he said after a brief pause. Fairly boring corporate work, actually. Must be doing well if you can afford to grab dinner at Della's, Kayla teased, gesturing around the modest diner. This is where all the high-powered executives wine and dine their clients, you know. Liam chuckled, relaxing slightly. The food's good. Sometimes that's all that matters. They fell into easy conversation as the rain continued to drum against the windows. Liam asked thoughtful questions about her work, seeming genuinely interested in the challenges she faced rather than using her job as a launchpad to talk about himself. A refreshing change from Kayla's limited dating experiences. Not that this was a date, she reminded herself firmly, just two strangers sharing a meal on a rainy night. Do you work with any particular organizations in the city? Liam asked, pushing his empty plate aside. Shelters? Community centers? That sort of thing? All of them, pretty much, Kayla replied. Hope Harbor downtown is where I refer most of my homeless families. The Westside Community Center runs excellent after-school programs. Oh, and Grace House for women escaping domestic violence. She tilted her head, curious. Why do you ask? Just curious about the infrastructure of support services, Liam said. My company is looking into more meaningful community involvement. Well, any of those places would put donations to good use, Kayla said. Though what most of them need even more than money is volunteers, people willing to show up consistently. Liam nodded thoughtfully. I'll keep that in mind. When the check arrived, Kayla reached for it automatically, but Liam's hand covered hers. The unexpected contact sent a small jolt through her fingers. Please, he said, his blue eyes earnest. You've been more than generous. At least, let me leave the tip. He placed $30 beside the bill Kayla had already paid, and she raised her eyebrows at the amount. That's more than the meal cost. Della seems like she works hard, Liam said with a shrug. Besides, I need to restore my dignity somehow. As they prepared to leave, the awkwardness of strangers who had shared an unexpectedly personal conversation descended. Kayla gathered her files, suddenly wondering if she should have kept more professional boundaries. It was nice meeting you, Liam, she said, zipping her files into her weather-beaten messenger bag. Good luck with your business management things. Could I get your number? Liam asked abruptly, then quickly added, I'd like to repay you properly for dinner. Maybe coffee sometime? Kayla hesitated. He seemed nice enough, but experience had taught her caution. Still, something about his earnest expression made her reach for a pen. She scribbled her number on a napkin. Fair warning, I'm terrible at answering texts. Work keeps me pretty busy. I understand, Liam said, carefully tucking the napkin into his wallet. I appreciate it all the same. They parted ways outside the diner, Kayla hurrying to her ancient Honda Civic while Liam stood for a moment in the rain, watching her go. She waved once before driving away, already mentally shifting back to her cases. The strange interlude with the handsome stranger filed away as an interesting but likely inconsequential encounter. What Kayla couldn't see as she drove through the rainy streets was Liam walking not to a parked car but to the sleek black luxury SUV that had been idling at the curb the entire time. Nor did she see the driver jump out to open the door for him, or hear Liam's quiet instruction, Find out everything you can about Hope Harbor Downtown, West Side Community Center, and Grace House. The next morning, sunlight streamed through the threadbare curtains of Kayla's one-bedroom apartment, waking her earlier than she would have liked on her rare Saturday off. She groaned and rolled over, but the coffee addiction Liam had so accurately identified had already begun its siren call. Shuffling to her tiny kitchen, she started the coffee maker and leaned against the counter, her mind drifting back to the strange encounter at the diner. There had been something oddly compelling about Liam. Not just his obvious good looks, though she wasn't blind enough to deny the appeal of those blue eyes, but the way he'd listened to her, truly listened, without the glazed expression people often adopted when she talked about her work. Her phone chimed with a text message, interrupting her thoughts. Unknown number. Thank you again for saving me from dishwashing duty last night. I was wondering if that coffee offer might be redeemed this afternoon. Liam. Kayla stared at the message, a smile tugging at her lips despite herself. She had assumed his request for her number was mere politeness, not an actual intention to follow through. After a moment's consideration, she typed back, I have some errands to run today, but I could meet around 3? There's a place called Beam's Beans on Edgewood Ave. His response came almost immediately. Perfect. See you then. Setting down her phone, Kayla felt an unexpected flutter of anticipation in her stomach. It had been months since she'd done anything resembling a date. Between her demanding caseload and her volunteer work, her social life had withered to occasional drinks with co-workers and weekly phone calls with her former foster sister. Maybe a coffee with a handsome, apparently kind stranger was exactly what she needed. In the penthouse suite of the Hawthorne Tower, Liam stood before floor-to-ceiling windows that offered a panoramic view of Atlanta's skyline. This was his kingdom. 40 stories of gleaming steel and glass, the crown jewel of Hawthorne Enterprises' real estate portfolio. At 32, Liam Hawthorne had expanded his late father's company into a diversified empire spanning real estate, technology, and sustainable energy. And yet, as he gazed down at the city sprawled before him, his thoughts weren't on quarterly projections or pending acquisitions, but on a social worker with kind eyes and a quiet strength that had caught him completely off guard. You have the board meeting in 30 minutes, Mr. Hawthorne, his assistant James reminded him, entering the spacious living area with a tablet in hand. And Ms. Kingsley called again. She'd like to confirm your attendance at the charity gala next weekend. Liam suppressed a grimace. Vanessa Kingsley, heiress to the Kingsley media conglomerate, had been not so subtly positioned as his ideal match by both their families for the past year. She was beautiful, intelligent, and as wealthy as she was ambitious. A perfect partner on paper. The fact that he felt absolutely nothing in her presence was apparently irrelevant to his mother's matchmaking efforts. Tell her I'll be there, but I'm not committing to being her escort, Liam replied, turning from the window, and have the car ready at 2:30. I have a meeting at 3. James lifted an eyebrow, a subtle expression that spoke volumes coming from the typically composed assistant who had worked for Liam since his father's death 5 years ago. A meeting not on your calendar? James asked mildly, making a note on his tablet. How mysterious. It's nothing, just coffee, Liam said, attempting casualness and failing miserably under James's knowing gaze. Coffee with the young woman from last night? James asked. The one who paid for your dinner when your card was mysteriously declined? Heat crept up Liam's neck. The card reader was faulty. Of course, sir. The smirk in James's voice was unmistakable. I'm simply thanking her for her kindness, Liam insisted, straightening his already impeccable tie. The average social worker's salary in Georgia is barely above the poverty line for a family of 4. $25 probably impacts her budget. Very altruistic of you to reimburse her, James remarked, though I imagine Daniel could have returned to the diner with a functioning credit card. Liam shot his assistant a look. You're enjoying this far too much. Just doing my job, sir. James's expression remained professionally neutral, though his eyes gleamed with amusement. I've taken the liberty of having Daniel drive an unmarked car this afternoon. I assumed discretion might be preferred. The knowing tone in James's voice made Liam wonder, not for the first time, if his assistant was actually psychic. Thank you, he said simply, deciding not to dig himself any deeper. As James left to prepare for the board meeting, Liam found himself replaying the previous night's encounter. He had initially chosen Della's Diner because it was the kind of place no one would expect to find Liam Hawthorne, heir to one of Atlanta's largest fortunes. Sometimes the weight of his name, his reputation, his responsibilities became suffocating. He had just wanted a quiet meal where he could be anonymous. What he hadn't expected was for his intentionally ordinary evening to produce such an extraordinary encounter. Kayla Thompson. The name suited her. Straightforward, unpretentious, warm. He had run a background check, of course, standard procedure, according to his security team, though it felt invasive given the circumstances. The report was brief. 28 years old, bachelor's and master's in social work from Georgia State University, employed by the Department of Family and Children's Services for 6 years, exemplary performance reviews, modest apartment in a developing neighborhood, no criminal record, minimal social media presence. The clinical summary couldn't capture what had intrigued him about her. The passionate way she spoke about her work, how she'd used her own painful past as fuel for helping others rather than as an excuse for bitterness, the complete absence of the fawning behavior he typically encountered when people recognized his name. She hadn't recognized him at all. The realization had been startling, then refreshing. When was the last time someone had looked at him and just seen a man, not a Hawthorne? The board meeting passed in a blur of financial reports and strategic planning, Liam contributing on autopilot while his thoughts continually drifted to his upcoming coffee meeting. By the time he slid into the back seat of the discreet black sedan at 2:40, he felt an unusual sensation fluttering in his stomach. "Beans on Edgewood," he instructed Daniel, his longtime driver, "and please no hovering nearby this time." Daniel's eyes met his in the rearview mirror. "Sir, Mr. Grayson would insist—" "Grayson isn't here," Liam interrupted, referring to his head of security. "It's a coffee shop in broad daylight, not an underground fight club." "Yes, sir," Daniel conceded, though he looked far from happy about it. Beans turned out to be a far cry from the sleek minimalist coffee chains that populated the business district. Housed in a converted Victorian cottage, its mismatched furniture, local art, and smell of fresh-baked pastries created an atmosphere of homey comfort. Liam arrived 10 minutes early, choosing a corner table that offered a view of both the entrance and the street outside. The door chimed at exactly 3 o'clock, and Kayla walked in wearing jeans, a simple emerald blouse that brought out flecks of green in her brown eyes, and the same practical messenger bag from the night before. Her curls were loose today, framing her face in a way that softened her features. She looked around, spotted him, and offered a small wave before approaching. "Right on time," Liam said, standing as she reached the table. "Occupational hazard," Kayla replied with a smile. "When you have 15 minutes to complete a home visit before rushing to court, you get pretty punctual." "What can I get you?" Liam asked, gesturing to the counter. "Oh, you don't have to." "Please," he insisted. "It's the least I can do after last night." Kayla relented. "Okay, but just a regular coffee, black, with room for cream." When Liam returned with their drinks, her simple coffee and his unnecessarily complicated espresso concoction that had made the barista smirk, he found Kayla watching a young family at a nearby table, a soft expression on her face as the father helped his toddler daughter carefully sip from a small hot chocolate. "You really love your work, don't you?" Liam asked, setting down their cups. Kayla turned back to him, a faint blush coloring her cheeks at being caught in her observation. "Is it that obvious? You light up when you talk about it, even when you're describing the challenges." She added a splash of cream to her coffee, considering his words. It's frustrating and heartbreaking and completely exhausting most days. But then there are moments, like when a kid who's been through hell finally feels safe enough to smile, or when a parent who's been struggling gets the support they need and you can see the relief in their eyes. She shrugged. Those moments make everything else worth it. That's rare, you know, Liam said quietly, finding work that feels meaningful. Something in his tone made Kayla look at him more closely. You don't find your work fulfilling? It was a simple question, but it hit with unexpected force. When was the last time anyone had asked him that? His work was impressive, profitable, respected, but fulfilling? It's complicated, he admitted. I'm in a position to make significant positive changes, but there are expectations and legacies to consider. He paused, realizing how cryptic he sounded. Corporate politics, he added lamely. Kayla nodded, though she looked slightly puzzled. Well, if you're serious about your company getting involved with community support, I'm happy to point you in the right direction. All the places I mentioned last night are always looking for sustainable partnerships, not just one-time donations. I'd appreciate that, Liam said sincerely. Actually, I was planning to visit some of those organizations, get a first-hand understanding of their needs. Really? Most corporate types just want to send a check and get the tax write-off. I'm not most corporate types, Liam replied, surprising himself with how much he wanted her to understand that. Their conversation flowed easily from there, moving from her work to books they'd both read, films they'd enjoyed, and places they hoped to visit someday. Kayla spoke animatedly about her dream of seeing the ancient ruins in Greece, while Liam shared stories of his backpacking adventures during his college years, carefully omitting that he'd been accompanied by a discreet security detail the entire time. 2 hours passed before Kayla glanced at her watch and grimaced. I should get going. I promised to help with dinner service at Hope Harbor tonight. On your day off? Liam asked, impressed. She shrugged. The shelter's short-staffed and Saturday dinner is important. For a lot of the residents, it's the one meal of the week where they can relax a little, not feel rushed. As they walked out together, Liam found himself reluctant to end their time together. Could I give you a ride to the shelter? Kayla shook her head. Thanks, but my car's just down the block. Besides, I need to stop at home first. What time does the dinner service start? Liam asked, an idea forming. 6:30. Why? Just curious, he said casually. Thank you for meeting me today, Kayla. I enjoyed it. Me too, she replied, her smile genuine. Thanks for the coffee. Liam watched her walk away, then pulled out his phone as soon as she was out of earshot. James, I need to arrange a substantial food donation to Hope Harbor downtown, to be delivered by 6 o'clock tonight, and I'll need the contact information for whoever runs the place. By 5:30, Liam had spoken to Hope Harbor's director, authorized a donation that had the woman nearly in tears with gratitude, and was in the back of his sedan heading toward the shelter. You know this is a bit stalkerish, right? James commented from the passenger seat, having insisted on accompanying him. Following a woman to her volunteer commitment without telling her? I'm not following her, Liam protested weakly. I'm supporting a worthy cause. James's skeptical expression spoke volumes. Of course, sir. Purely philanthropic motivations. Liam sighed, knowing his assistant was right. Just try to keep the Hawthorne name under wraps, all right? I don't want special treatment. But as they pulled up to the modest building that housed Hope Harbor, Liam wondered if anonymity was even possible. He was about to find out. Hope Harbor downtown occupied a former elementary school building, its institutional architecture softened by murals and container gardens. As Liam approached the entrance, he noticed security cameras and a keypad entry system, modest but essential protections for a facility serving vulnerable populations. Inside, the school gymnasium had been transformed into a dining hall, with round tables instead of the standard cafeteria-style seating. The effect created a more intimate, family-like atmosphere. Volunteers bustled about, arranging flowers on tables and setting up a buffet line with what appeared to be an unusually generous spread, no doubt the results of his donation. "Mr. Smith?" A middle-aged woman with salt and pepper hair approached him with an extended hand. "I'm Gloria Washington, the director. We spoke on the phone. I can't thank you enough for your incredible generosity." Liam shook her hand, grateful that James had arranged for him to use a pseudonym. "Please call me Liam, and I'm happy to help. Is there something I can do beyond the donation?" Gloria's eyes lit up. "You want to volunteer too? We're always short-handed on weekends. Can you serve food?" "I think I can manage that," Liam replied with a smile. She handed him a Hope Harbor apron and led him to the serving line, where staff were transferring his catered feast into serving trays. "Usually, we serve about 75 people on Saturday nights, mostly families with children. Tonight's meal is—" Her voice trailed off as she gestured to the gourmet spread. "Well, this is certainly not our usual fare. The residents are in for a treat." As Liam tied the apron around his waist, he spotted Kayla entering through a side door. She wore the same clothes from their coffee date but had added a Hope Harbor apron similar to his. Her hair was now pulled back in a ponytail and she carried a stack of children's books that she placed on a small table near the entrance. Even from across the room he could see the easy rapport she had with the staff, the way her entire demeanor conveyed belonging. This was her world, and for the first time in his life, Liam felt like the outsider. Gloria followed his gaze. "You know Kayla?" "We're acquaintances," Liam replied, realizing he wasn't entirely sure what they were. "We met recently. She's one of our most dedicated volunteers," Gloria said warmly. "Started coming here during her social work internship 6 years ago and never stopped. The kids adore her." Before Liam could respond, the doors opened and residents began filing in. Mothers with tired eyes guiding energetic children, elderly individuals moving slowly with the aid of walkers, young men with wary expressions scanning the room as if anticipating threats. All wore the unmistakable look of people carrying heavy burdens. Liam was stationed at the serving line beside an elderly volunteer named Hattie, who gave him a crash course in portion control and serving etiquette. "Some folks won't make eye contact," she explained quietly. "Don't take it personal. And the children might ask for extra dessert. We usually say yes on Saturdays." He nodded, absorbing her instructions while scanning the room for Kayla. He spotted her kneeling beside a young boy, perhaps 7 or 8, who was clutching a worn, stuffed dinosaur and looking apprehensively at the crowded room. Whatever she said made the child's shoulders relax slightly, and he allowed her to guide him toward the serving line. When they reached Liam's station, Kayla did a double-take. "Liam, what are you doing here?" He offered what he hoped was a casual smile. "I mentioned wanting to get involved, remember? Thought I'd see what Hope Harbor was all about." Her eyes narrowed slightly, but the little boy tugging at her hand recaptured her attention. "Miss Kayla, can I have the chicken?" the child asked, pointing to the herb-roasted chicken breast that was definitely not typical shelter fare. "Of course, Tyler," she replied, then glanced up at Liam. "This is my friend Tyler. He's an expert on dinosaurs, aren't you, Ty?" Tyler nodded solemnly, holding up his stuffed toy. "This is a triceratops. He has 3 horns and a frill to protect his neck from predators." Liam served the boy a piece of chicken. "That's very impressive knowledge. I bet you know more about dinosaurs than most adults." The child's face brightened. "I know all of them, even the new ones that scientists just discovered." "Tyler, why don't you tell Mr. Liam about that book we were reading last week?" Kayla suggested, a warmth in her eyes that hadn't been there moments before. As Tyler launched into an enthusiastic explanation of dinosaur migration patterns, Liam caught Kayla's gaze. She gave him a small nod of approval before moving on with the line, helping an elderly woman with her tray. For the next hour, Liam served food and chatted with residents, slowly letting go of his initial awkwardness. He found himself genuinely enjoying the interactions, the shy thank yous from exhausted mothers fist bumps from teenage boys, detailed food reviews from seniors who recognized quality ingredients. No one asked what he did for a living or tried to network with him. No one recognized him as Liam Hawthorne, CEO and eligible bachelor frequently featured in Atlanta's society pages. He was just Liam, the new volunteer serving really good chicken. The novelty of it was both unsettling and deeply refreshing. After the serving line closed, Liam helped clear tables while Kayla gathered children in a corner for story time. He watched as she read with animated expressions. The children clustered around her like she was the Pied Piper, their faces transformed by laughter and wonder. Even some of the teenagers, initially determined to appear uninterested, drifted closer to listen. "She's something special, isn't she?" Gloria appeared beside him, following his gaze. "She really is," Liam agreed, not bothering to hide his admiration. "We tried to hire her full-time once, but she says her casework is too important to give up," Gloria continued. "Something about being the person who stands between vulnerable children and a broken system." Liam nodded, recalling Kayla's mention of her own social worker who had changed her life. She mentioned growing up in foster care. Gloria's expression softened. "Kayla doesn't talk about that much with most people. 7 different placements before she turned 18, from what I understand. The fact that she came through all that with such compassion instead of bitterness is nothing short of miraculous." The new information settled in Liam's chest like a weight. 7 placements. He tried to imagine the instability of that existence. Never having a permanent home, always being the outsider, always having to adapt to new rules and expectations. The contrast with his own privileged upbringing was stark. When story time ended, the children dispersed to their rooms or temporary apartments within the shelter. Kayla stood and stretched, then noticed Liam watching her. She approached with a curious expression. "So," she said, crossing her arms. "Quite a coincidence, you showing up here tonight?" Liam had the grace to look slightly abashed. "I may have called and asked when their dinner service was." "And arranged for that impressive spread?" she added, raising an eyebrow. "You said they were short-staffed and could use support," he replied with a shrug. "Seemed like a good place to start." Kayla studied him for a moment, then her expression softened. "It was very generous. Gloria told me they haven't had a meal like that in years." She tilted her head, "Though I'm a little suspicious of your motives." "Can't a guy just want to help a good cause?" "A guy? Sure. A business management guy who shows up at exactly the same place I volunteer hours after I mentioned it." Kayla's tone was teasing rather than accusatory. "Seems like maybe there's more to it than pure philanthropy." Liam felt a flush creeping up his neck. "Would it be terrible if I admitted I wanted to see you again?" Kayla's smile was small but genuine. "Not terrible. But you could have just asked for a second date instead of going through all this." "Was coffee a first date then?" Liam asked, his heart rate picking up. "Wasn't it?" Before he could respond, Gloria called Kayla over to help with a situation involving one of the resident families. Kayla excused herself, leaving Liam with the lingering warmth of her almost admission and the realization that he was rapidly developing feelings for a woman who had no idea who he really was. After helping with cleanup, Liam found Kayla in the shelter's small office, sorting through donation forms. "I should head out," he said from the doorway, "but I wanted to say goodbye." She looked up and smiled. "Thanks for your help tonight. The kids loved you, especially Tyler." "I liked him too," Liam replied honestly. "He's incredibly bright." Kayla's expression clouded slightly. "He is. He and his mom have been here for 3 months. Domestic violence situation. They lost everything when they fled." The matter-of-fact way she delivered such a devastating reality hit Liam hard. This was her everyday world. Not board meetings and investment strategies, but human beings in crisis, children with interrupted childhoods, families rebuilding from trauma. "Would you have dinner with me tomorrow?" he asked suddenly. A real dinner, not diner food or shelter cafeteria fare, I know a great place in Midtown." Kayla looked surprised, then hesitant. "I'm not really dressed for fancy restaurants." "You look perfect," Liam assured her. "But it's not super formal, I promise." After a moment's consideration, she nodded. "Okay, but I should warn you, I'm on call for emergencies. If my phone rings, I might have to leave suddenly." "I understand," Liam said, though he had never dated anyone whose plans might be derailed by a crisis call. His usual social circle consisted of women whose biggest emergencies involved seating arrangements at charity galas or securing front-row tickets to exclusive events. They exchanged contact information, properly this time not on a diner napkin, and agreed on a time. As Liam walked toward the exit, Kayla called after him, "Hey Liam, it's nice to meet someone who doesn't just talk about making a difference." Her words followed him into the night, a mixture of validation and guilt settling in his chest. She thought he was just a regular guy with a corporate job who cared enough to volunteer. Part of him wanted to preserve that image, to experience the novelty of being valued for his actions rather than his name or wealth. But as Daniel pulled the car around to pick him up, having been instructed to wait several blocks away, Liam knew the charade couldn't last. Sooner or later, Kayla Thompson would discover that she had been dining with, volunteering beside, and possibly dating Liam Hawthorne, whose face regularly appeared in business magazines and whose family name adorned buildings throughout the city, including, ironically, the newly built Hawthorne wing of the very shelter they had just left, though the sign hadn't been installed yet. He hoped when that moment came, she would remember tonight. Not the donation, but the way he had served food alongside her, listened to Tyler's dinosaur facts, and found genuine fulfillment in work that had nothing to do with profit margins or shareholder value. For the first time in years, Liam had felt like himself. Not the version of himself he presented in boardrooms, but someone more authentic, more aligned with the idealistic young man he had been before his father's death, had thrust him into a role he'd never wanted. The question was whether that version of Liam Hawthorne could exist in the real world, or if it was just a temporary escape from the responsibilities and expectations that defined his life. Sunday evening found Kayla standing before her closet with uncharacteristic indecision. She rarely worried about her appearance. Her work required practicality over fashion, and her limited budget meant her wardrobe consisted mainly of sensible basics that could transition from office to home visits to court appearances. But tonight felt different. Despite her attempts to downplay it, dinner with Liam had taken on the unmistakable shape of a date in her mind. A proper date with a man who intrigued her more than she cared to admit. She finally settled on a forest green wrap dress, the one splurge she'd allowed herself after receiving a small bonus last year. It was the most versatile piece she owned, appropriate for work functions but elegant enough for evening. Paired with her only decent pair of heels and the simple silver necklace her foster sister had given her for her 25th birthday, it was the best she could do. As she applied a light touch of makeup, Kayla found herself wondering about Liam. He was clearly well-educated and successful, but there was something else about him she couldn't quite place, a kind of careful distance, as if he were holding part of himself in reserve. And yet, when she'd seen him at Hope Harbor, serving food and chatting with Tyler about dinosaurs, that reserve had melted away, revealing a warmth and authenticity that had caught her by surprise. Her phone buzzed with a text from Liam. "Outside whenever you're ready. No rush." Kayla frowned slightly. She had expected to meet him at the restaurant, or at least have him come to her door. Taking a final glance in the mirror, she grabbed her purse and headed downstairs. What she hadn't expected was the sleek black car idling at the curb, or the driver who stepped out to open the rear door as she approached. "Miss Thompson?" the driver asked politely. "Mr. Liam is waiting for you." Confused, Kayla peered into the back seat where Liam sat, looking slightly sheepish in a tailored navy suit that she instinctively knew cost more than her monthly rent. "You hired a car service?" she asked as she slid in beside him, suddenly conscious of the age of her dress and the scuff marks on her heels. "It's more convenient," Liam replied with a casual shrug that didn't quite land. "You look beautiful, by the way." "Thank you." Kayla smoothed her dress self-consciously. "You clean up pretty well yourself." As the car pulled away from her modest apartment building, Kayla noticed Liam's gaze taking in the neighborhood. The mix of renovated houses and buildings awaiting gentrification, the community garden on the corner lot where a crack house had once stood, the newly opened coffee shop that employed formerly incarcerated youth. "It's a neighborhood in transition," she explained, feeling oddly defensive. "A lot of good people working to revitalize it without displacing long-time residents." "It's impressive," Liam said, and the sincerity in his voice surprised her. Sustainable community development is hard to achieve. The conversation flowed easily as they drove, shifting to their respective Sundays. Kayla shared her morning tradition of calling her former foster sister, who now lived in Seattle with her husband and 2 children. Liam mentioned a business call that couldn't be avoided, carefully omitting that it had been with investors in Singapore and had required his legal team to finalize complex multinational contracts. When they arrived at the restaurant, Kayla's suspicions about the evening's upscale nature were confirmed. Nestled in a historic building in Midtown, Lucian's was known for its innovative cuisine and exclusive clientele, the kind of place she had read about but never imagined dining in. "Are you sure about this place?" she whispered as they approached the entrance. "It looks pretty fancy." "They make the best risotto in the city," Liam assured her. "And I promised you a real dinner." The maitre d' greeted Liam by name, which Kayla found curious but not alarming. Perhaps he was a regular. They were shown to a secluded corner table with a view of the Atlanta skyline, the lights of the city creating a romantic backdrop. As they settled in, a waiter immediately appeared with a bottle of wine. "Mr. Hawthorne's preferred Bordeaux," he announced, presenting the bottle with a flourish. Kayla blinked. "Hawthorne?" Liam winced almost imperceptibly before recovering with a smooth smile. "Family name? I usually go by Liam Smith professionally. Less distinctive." The waiter, realizing his mistake, poured the wine with an apologetic expression and quickly retreated. "Smith? As in the name you used at Hope Harbor last night?" Kayla asked, her social worker's instinct for inconsistencies kicking in. "I like to keep my volunteer work separate from my business life," Liam explained, which wasn't entirely a lie. "Smith is just easier all around." Kayla studied him for a moment, then nodded slowly. "I can understand wanting to compartmentalize different parts of your life." The tension eased as they perused the menu, though Kayla's eyes widened at the prices. When she started to protest that she could pay for her own meal, Liam gently insisted that dinner was his treat. "You already covered one meal for me," he reminded her. "Let me return the favor properly." Their conversation over dinner ranged from childhood memories to professional aspirations. Liam shared sanitized versions of his college experiences and early career, while Kayla spoke more openly about her journey through the foster care system and into social work. "After my 7th placement, I just stopped unpacking completely," she admitted, swirling the wine in her glass. "I'd keep everything in my backpack or duffel bag ready to move at a moment's notice." "That must have been incredibly difficult," Liam said quietly. "Always being prepared to leave." Kayla shrugged, but the casual gesture couldn't disguise the old pain in her eyes. "You adapt, but it does things to you. Makes it hard to believe in permanence. Even now, I have this irrational fear of accumulating too many possessions." "Is that why your apartment is so—" Liam trailed off, realizing too late the implication that he had formed judgments about her living situation. "Minimalist?" Kayla supplied with a wry smile. "Partly. Also, social workers don't exactly earn CEO salaries." Liam shifted uncomfortably. "I didn't mean—" "It's okay," she assured him. I've made peace with IKEA furniture and thrift store finds. My work fulfills me in ways money never could." The conviction in her voice stirred something deep in Liam's chest, a longing for that kind of certainty about his own purpose. While he took pride in steering Hawthorne Enterprises toward more socially responsible practices, he had never experienced the direct impact of his work the way Kayla did every day. Their desserts had just arrived when a distinguished older couple approached their table. "Liam Hawthorne, what a delightful surprise!" the woman exclaimed, her expertly highlighted blonde hair framing a face maintained by Atlanta's most exclusive plastic surgeon. Liam stood quickly, his expression shifting into what Kayla would later recognize as his public persona. "Mrs. Covington, Senator, lovely to see you both. We missed you at the Symphony Gala last weekend," Mrs. Covington continued, her appraising gaze sliding to Kayla. "Though I see you found a more interesting diversion." The barely concealed condescension in her tone made Kayla sit up straighter, years of advocating for herself in hostile environments coming to her aid. "Eleanor," the senator murmured warningly before extending his hand to Kayla. "Richard Covington. My wife and I are old friends of the Hawthorne family." "Kayla Thompson," she replied, shaking his hand firmly. "I work for the Department of Family and Children's Services." Mrs. Covington's perfectly sculpted eyebrows rose slightly. "How noble. Tell me, how did you and Liam meet? I wasn't aware he had connections in social services." "Actually, I paid for his dinner when his credit card was declined," Kayla replied with sweet bluntness, enjoying the shock that registered on the older woman's face. Liam choked slightly on his water, then recovered with a laugh. "It was a faulty card reader, but Kayla came to my rescue. Knight in shining armor, or rather, knight in sensible shoes." Senator Covington chuckled genuinely, seemingly amused by his wife's discomfort. "Well, we won't interrupt your evening further. Liam, do give your mother my regards. Eleanor's hosting a fundraiser for the Children's Hospital next month. I'm sure you'll receive an invitation." As the couple moved away, Kayla turned her attention back to Liam, a new wariness in her expression. "So, Liam Hawthorne, not Smith. And apparently you know senators socially." Liam ran a hand through his hair, a gesture she was beginning to recognize as a sign of his discomfort. "The Covingtons are associates of my family. Atlanta's a smaller social world than you might think." "And exactly what kind of business management do you do, Liam?" Kayla asked directly, setting down her fork. "The kind that puts you on first-name basis with state senators and has waiters knowing your wine preferences?" For a moment, Liam considered continuing the charade, but something in Kayla's direct gaze made prevarication impossible. "I'm CEO of Hawthorne Enterprises," he admitted finally. "It's a family company. Real estate development primarily, though we've diversified into technology and sustainable energy in recent years." Kayla was silent for a long moment, processing this information. "Hawthorne," she repeated slowly, "as in Hawthorne Tower downtown? The Hawthorne Convention Center? That Hawthorne?" Liam nodded, watching her expression carefully. "Yes, my father founded the company and I took over after he passed away 5 years ago." "So when you offered to help Hope Harbor—" "I meant it," Liam said quickly. "My interest in your work, in the community organizations, that's all genuine, Kayla." She studied him, her expression unreadable. "Why didn't you just tell me who you were from the beginning?" It was the question he had been dreading, yet now that it had arrived, Liam found himself answering with unexpected honesty. "Because for the first time in years, someone was seeing me, just me, not my family name or net worth or business reputation. You paid for my dinner and talked to me about your work, and not once did you mention real estate development or investment opportunities or try to network your way into a donation." Kayla's expression softened slightly. "You thought I'd treat you differently if I knew you were wealthy?" "It's been my experience," Liam said simply. The rest of dinner passed in a state of recalibration, with Kayla asking more direct questions about his work and Liam answering more honestly. By the time they left the restaurant, a new understanding had formed between them, fragile but with potential for something stronger. In the car ride back to Kayla's apartment, silence settled between them, comfortable yet charged with unspoken thoughts. "I'd like to see you again," Liam said finally as they pulled up to her building. "If you're still interested, knowing who I really am." Kayla turned to face him fully. "I'm still figuring out who you really are, Liam Hawthorne, but I think I'd like to keep trying." She leaned forward and pressed a soft, brief kiss to his cheek. "Just don't lie to me again, even lies of omission. I've had enough people in my life who couldn't be trusted." The weight of her words settled on Liam's shoulders as he watched her walk to her building's entrance. She turned once to wave before disappearing inside, leaving him with the lingering warmth of her kiss and the sobering recognition that he had been given a second chance he wasn't entirely sure he deserved. Over the following weeks, Kayla and Liam settled into a rhythm that somehow accommodated both their vastly different lives. Liam would join her for volunteer shifts at Hope Harbor or the Westside Community Center, where his easy way with children and willingness to tackle unglamorous tasks gradually won over the initially suspicious staff. Kayla, in turn, allowed herself to be introduced to Liam's world, attending a symphony performance in the Hawthorne-sponsored box and accompanying him to a restaurant opening where the chef greeted Liam like an old friend. Their relationship existed in these parallel universes, his of privilege and influence, hers of service and struggle, connected by a growing affection that surprised them both in its intensity. "You're good for him," James commented one afternoon as he drove Kayla to meet Liam for lunch. After several awkward encounters, Liam had finally properly introduced her to his assistant and driver, who had become unlikely allies in navigating the complexities of dating one of Atlanta's most eligible bachelors. "What makes you say that?" Kayla asked, watching the city transform from the glass and steel skyscrapers of downtown to the more eclectic architecture of the Arts District. "He smiles more," James replied simply, and he started showing up to board meetings with actual ideas instead of just going through the motions. Kayla considered this as they arrived at the small cafe where Liam waited. It was one of their compromises, not a fast food place where Liam would stand out in his bespoke suits, but not so upscale that Kayla felt uncomfortable in her work clothes. Liam's face brightened when he saw her, rising to greet her with a quick kiss. "How was your morning?" "Challenging," Kayla admitted, settling into her chair. "Emergency removal of 3 kids from a home with evidence of drug manufacturing. The youngest is only 2. Liam's expression grew serious. "Are they safe now?" "Physically, yes. Emotionally." She shrugged, the gesture conveying what words couldn't. "We found emergency placements, but separating siblings is never ideal." "Can't they stay together?" "Finding a foster home willing to take 3 children at once is nearly impossible, especially with the youngest still in diapers," Kayla explained. "The system is overwhelmed, resources are stretched thin, and—" She trailed off, noticing Liam's thoughtful expression. "What?" "I was just thinking about the Hawthorne Foundation's initiatives," he said slowly. "We've focused mainly on education and healthcare, but maybe we should consider expanding into foster care support." Kayla tilted her head. "What did you have in mind?" "I'm not sure yet. Recruitment and retention of quality foster parents, specialized training, support services to help keep sibling groups together." Liam's mind was clearly racing with possibilities. "Would you be willing to consult on something like that? Help identify the most critical needs?" The genuine enthusiasm in his voice made Kayla smile despite her exhausting morning. "I'd be happy to. But don't you need board approval for new foundation initiatives?" "Let me worry about the board," Liam replied with a confidence that reminded Kayla just how much power he wielded in his world. "They usually defer to me on foundation matters anyway." Their lunch conversation shifted to lighter topics. A documentary they'd both watched, plans for the upcoming weekend, Liam's amusing encounter with a particularly persistent salesperson who hadn't recognized him without his usual business attire. As they prepared to part ways, Kayla returning to her office, Liam to a meeting with international investors, he held her hand a moment longer than necessary. "I have a charity gala this Saturday," he said, a hint of uncertainty in his voice. "It's for the Children's Hospital, black tie, lots of photographs and small talk with donors. Would you consider being my date?" Kayla hesitated. Their relationship had remained relatively private so far, with only a few sightings by Atlanta's society photographers that had resulted in vague speculation about Liam Hawthorne's mystery companion. A high-profile charity gala would change that. "Will your mother be there?" she asked. Liam winced slightly. "Yes, along with pretty much everyone in Atlanta's social and business circles. You haven't mentioned me to her yet, have you?" "I've been waiting for the right time," Liam admitted. "Mother has strong opinions about appropriate matches." Kayla withdrew her hand, a familiar sense of not quite belonging settling in her chest. "And a social worker with a foster care background doesn't qualify as appropriate." "That's not what I meant," Liam protested. "My mother is just traditional. She expects me to marry someone from our social circle." "Someone like Vanessa Kingsley?" Kayla asked, recalling the stunning heiress whose photos with Liam regularly appeared in society pages. James had inadvertently mentioned her during one of their drives. "Vanessa and I are just friends," Liam insisted, though a flicker of discomfort crossed his face. "Family friends, really. Our mothers serve on several committees together." Kayla sighed, suddenly tired. "I should get back to work. Those 3 kids need placements finalized by end of day." "Kayla, wait." Liam reached for her hand again. "I want you there on Saturday. I want you to meet my mother, meet my friends, be part of my whole life, not just the parts that are convenient." The sincerity in his eyes melted some of her resistance. "I don't own anything appropriate for a black tie gala, Liam." "James can arrange for some options to be sent to your apartment," Liam suggested, then immediately backtracked at Kayla's expression. "Or not. Whatever makes you comfortable." After a moment's consideration, Kayla nodded. "I'll go, but I'm buying my own dress, something I can actually afford." Liam looked like he wanted to argue, but wisely held his tongue. "Deal. I'll pick you up at 7. As they parted, Kayla couldn't help wondering if she had just agreed to step into a world where she would never truly belong. Saturday evening arrived with a flutter of nervousness Kayla hadn't felt since her first foster care placement interview. She had spent more than she should have on a simple black gown, classic enough to avoid looking dated, elegant enough for a formal event, and thankfully on clearance at a boutique that catered to young professionals. Her foster sister Zoe had FaceTimed to help with hair and makeup strategies, her Seattle home visible in the background where her children occasionally wandered into frame. "You look gorgeous," Zoe assured her, as Kayla made a final turn before the phone propped on her dresser. "That billionaire boyfriend of yours won't know what hit him." "He's not my boyfriend," Kayla protested automatically, though the denial rang hollow even to her own ears. "What else would you call a man you'd been seeing exclusively for nearly 2 months? Who texted you good morning every day and remembered your coffee order and listened to your work frustrations with genuine concern?" "Whatever you say, sis," Zoe replied with a knowing smile. "Just remember, you belong anywhere you decide to go. Those ritzy charity people don't get to make you feel small." Kayla carried those words with her as Liam's car arrived, and he stepped out looking devastatingly handsome in a perfectly tailored tuxedo. His expression when he saw her, a mixture of appreciation and something deeper, more tender, calmed her nerves momentarily. "You are absolutely beautiful," he said, taking both her hands in his. "You clean up pretty well yourself, Hawthorne," she replied with a smile, accepting the light kiss he placed on her cheek. The drive to the St. Regis Hotel was filled with Liam's gentle briefing on who they might encounter and good-natured stories about previous galas that had gone hilariously wrong. By the time they arrived, Kayla felt marginally more prepared for the evening ahead. What she wasn't prepared for was the sudden hush that fell over the crowd as they entered the ballroom, followed by the immediate buzz of whispered conversations. Liam Hawthorne was apparently news in any setting, but Liam Hawthorne with an unknown woman on his arm was headline material. "Liam, darling," a striking woman in her 60s approached, her silver hair elegantly styled and her posture impeccable. Even without the resemblance around the eyes, Kayla would have identified her as Liam's mother from her aura of confident authority. "I was beginning to think you'd stood me up." "Mother," Liam greeted her with a kiss on the cheek. "May I introduce Kayla Thompson? Kayla, this is my mother, Vivian Hawthorne." Vivian's appraising gaze swept over Kayla with the efficiency of a scanner, cataloging everything from her simple dress to her lack of expensive jewelry. "Miss Thompson, how lovely to meet you. I don't believe we've crossed paths before at these events." "This is my first time attending the Children's Hospital Gala," Kayla replied, extending her hand. "But the cause is certainly worthy of support." "Indeed," Vivian agreed with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "And how did you and Liam meet? Are you in real estate as well?" "Actually, Mother, Kayla is a social worker with the Department of Family and Children Services," Liam interjected. "She's been consulting with me on potential new initiatives for the Foundation's community outreach." "How interesting," Vivian replied, her tone suggesting it was anything but. "And is that how you two became acquainted?" "We met at a diner, actually," Kayla supplied, determined not to be intimidated. "I paid for his dinner when his card was declined." Vivian's perfectly maintained composure slipped for just a moment, revealing genuine shock before she recovered with a practiced laugh. "How chivalrous of you. Liam has always been dreadfully careless with his cards." Before the conversation could continue, they were interrupted by a tall, strikingly beautiful woman in a designer gown that probably cost more than Kayla's yearly salary. "Liam, you're finally here," the woman said, placing a familiar hand on his arm. "The Prestons have been asking about the Singapore project, and only you can explain it properly." "Vanessa," Liam acknowledged, a flicker of discomfort crossing his features. "Kayla, this is Vanessa Kingsley, a family friend. Vanessa, this is Kayla Thompson." Vanessa's smile never wavered, though her eyes assessed Kayla with cool precision. "Charmed. I've been so curious about the woman who's been monopolizing Liam's time lately." "Hardly monopolizing," Kayla replied evenly. "Liam's a very busy man." "Oh, we're all aware of how in demand he is," Vanessa said with a meaningful look at Vivian. "The Hawthorne heir doesn't belong to just one person, does he?" The proprietary way she linked her arm through Liam's sent a clear message. This was territory being marked, a claim being staked. "Vanessa, why don't you help me greet the Montgomerys?" Vivian suggested smoothly. "Liam, darling, do bring Miss Thompson to our table when the dinner begins. We have so much more to discuss." As the two women glided away, Kayla turned to Liam with raised eyebrows. "So, just friends?" Liam had the grace to look uncomfortable. "It's complicated. Our families have expectations." "I see," Kayla said quietly, suddenly feeling every bit the outsider she had feared becoming. "And what are your expectations, Liam?" Before he could answer, they were surrounded by business associates and society acquaintances, all eager for a moment of Liam Hawthorne's attention. Kayla found herself gently but inexorably separated from him, adrift in a sea of wealth and privilege where no one seemed particularly interested in a social worker from the wrong side of the tracks. Standing alone by an elaborate ice sculpture, nursing a champagne she didn't really want, Kayla wondered if Zoe had been wrong. Maybe there were places she simply didn't belong, regardless of how much she might wish otherwise. "You look like you could use a rescue." Kayla turned to find an older gentleman in an impeccably tailored tuxedo offering her a kind smile. Silver-haired and distinguished, he had the relaxed confidence of someone completely comfortable in this environment. "Is it that obvious?" she asked with a rueful smile. "Only to a fellow outsider," he replied, extending his hand. "Robert Chambers. I'm the chief of pediatric surgery at the Children's Hospital. Kayla Thompson. I work for Family and Children's Services." Dr. Chambers's eyes lit up with genuine interest. "Really? I've worked with your agency several times over the years. Difficult but vital work you do." The simple acknowledgement of her profession, without surprise or condescension, eased some of the tension in Kayla's shoulders. It can be challenging, but worth it. "And how did you find yourself at this particular gathering of Atlanta's elite?" he asked, his tone gently teasing. Kayla's eyes drifted to where Liam stood surrounded by a circle of admirers, Vanessa still at his side. "I'm here with Liam Hawthorne." If Dr. Chambers was surprised, he hid it well. "Ah, that explains the particularly venomous glares Vanessa Kingsley has been sending your way. She's had her sights set on that match for years." "So I'm gathering," Kayla replied dryly. "For what it's worth, in the 30 years I've known Liam, from awkward boy to capable young man, I've never seen him look at anyone the way he looks at you. You've known him that long?" "I was his father's friend," Dr. Chambers explained. "Carlton Hawthorne was a complicated man, brilliant in business, sometimes less so in family matters, but he loved his son fiercely even if he wasn't always good at showing it." Kayla absorbed this information, realizing how little she knew about Liam's relationship with his father. What was Liam like as a child? Dr. Chambers smiled fondly. "Curious about everything, always asking why things worked the way they did, but also sensitive. He once organized a fundraiser for one of the household staff's children who needed specialized medical care. He was only 12 at the time." The image of a young Liam, already showing the empathy that had drawn her to him, warmed Kayla's heart. "The Hawthorne family carries the burden of tremendous expectations," Dr. Chambers continued more seriously. "Traditions, responsibilities, public scrutiny, it can be suffocating. Liam has carried that weight alone since Carlton's death." "He's never really talked about his father," Kayla admitted. "It was a difficult loss. Carlton had been grooming Liam to eventually take over, but no one expected it to happen so suddenly. Liam was thrust into running a multi-billion-dollar corporation at 27, with Vivian and the board watching his every move." Dr. Chambers sipped his drink thoughtfully. In many ways, he's still trying to prove himself worthy of his father's legacy. Before Kayla could respond, a chime announced that dinner was being served. Dr. Chambers offered his arm with old-fashioned courtesy. "Shall we? I believe we're both at the Hawthorne table." As they approached the elaborately decorated table, Liam broke away from his group, looking relieved to see Kayla. "There you are. I was worried you might have escaped through a service entrance." "Dr. Chambers has been keeping me company," Kayla replied, noting Vivian Hawthorne's raised eyebrow at their familiarity. "Robert," Liam greeted the doctor warmly, "I should have known you'd find the most interesting person in the room. A talent developed over decades of these functions," Dr. Chambers replied with a wink at Kayla before taking his seat beside Vivian. Dinner was an exercise in navigating subtle social landmines. Vivian dominated the conversation, skillfully highlighting the Hawthorne family's contributions to Atlanta's development and the numerous connections between their tablemates. Kayla noted how she repeatedly referenced Liam and Vanessa's shared history, prep schools, family vacations, previous charity work, creating a narrative of natural partnership that excluded Kayla entirely. "Miss Thompson," Vivian said during a lull in the conversation, "Liam mentioned you're involved in foster care services. Such difficult work. I've always admired those who dedicate themselves to causes without adequate compensation." The condescension was barely veiled, but Kayla maintained her composure. "The rewards aren't always financial, Mrs. Hawthorne. Seeing a child find stability and safety is worth more than any paycheck." "How admirable," Vanessa interjected with saccharine sweetness. though I imagine it must be difficult to maintain such idealism when facing so much ugliness in your work." "The ugliness is real," Kayla acknowledged, "but so is the resilience of the human spirit. I've seen children overcome unimaginable obstacles and still retain their capacity for joy and connection. It's humbling, actually." "Kayla is being modest," Liam added, his hand finding hers under the table. "She's currently developing recommendations for the Hawthorne Foundation's new foster care initiative. Her insights have been invaluable." Vivian's smile tightened almost imperceptibly. "I wasn't aware the foundation was expanding in that direction." "It's a recent development, Mother," Liam replied smoothly. "The board approved it unanimously last week." This was news to Kayla, who shot Liam a surprised look. He hadn't mentioned bringing her suggestions to the board already. "How progressive of you, darling," Vivian remarked. "Though I wonder if our traditional donors will share your enthusiasm for this particular cause." "If they don't, we'll find new donors who do," Liam responded with quiet confidence. The tension at the table was broken by the announcement that the live auction was about to begin. As guests turned their attention to the stage, Kayla leaned closer to Liam. "You didn't tell me the board had already approved the foster care initiative?" she whispered. "I wanted to surprise you," he replied, looking pleased with himself. "They were impressed by the proposal I developed based on our conversations. The Hawthorne Foundation will be committing $10 million initially, with more depending on program success." Kayla's breath caught. $10 million? Liam, that could change everything. Sibling group homes, specialized training, support services. "That's the idea," he said, his eyes warm as he watched her process the possibilities. "I want to make a real difference, not just write checks for photo opportunities." For a moment, Kayla forgot about Vivian's disapproval and Vanessa's territorial behavior. This was the Liam she had come to care for deeply, the man who listened when she spoke about the system's failures and actually wanted to help fix them. As the auction proceeded, Liam bid confidently on several items, winning a luxury ski vacation package and a custom portrait by a renowned artist. When a principal for a day experience at an inner-city school came up for bid, Kayla was surprised to see Vanessa enter the bidding war, eventually winning with an extravagant sum. "I didn't realize Vanessa was interested in education," Kayla remarked. "She's not," Liam replied quietly. "But I mentioned earlier that I was planning to bid on that one for you. I know you've talked about wanting more collaboration between schools and social services." The realization that Vanessa had deliberately outbid him on the one item he wanted for Kayla settled uncomfortably between them. Before either could comment further, the master of ceremonies announced a brief intermission before dancing would begin. "I need some air," Kayla said, suddenly feeling claustrophobic in the opulent ballroom. Liam immediately rose. "I'll come with you." They found their way to a terrace overlooking the hotel's immaculate gardens. The night air was cool but not unpleasant, the distant sounds of city traffic a reminder of the world beyond this exclusive gathering. "I'm sorry about my mother," Liam said after a moment of silence. "And Vanessa, they're not usually so territorial," Kayla supplied with a raised eyebrow. "I was going to say transparent," he admitted with a rueful smile. "Mother is used to having significant input on my life decisions." "And what about Vanessa? Dr. Chambers mentioned she's had her sights set on you for some time." Liam sighed, leaning against the stone balustrade. "Vanessa and I dated briefly in college. It didn't work out, but our families have remained close, and she's never quite accepted the end of our relationship." "She seems pretty confident about your future together," Kayla observed, thinking of the proprietary way Vanessa had touched him throughout the evening. "Vanessa has a gift for seeing what she wants to see," Liam replied. "I've been clear about my feelings, but she's persistent. And your mother clearly approves of her." "My mother approves of her family name and connections," Liam corrected. "The Kingsleys are old Atlanta money like the Hawthorns. In her mind, It's a sensible match. And we're not, Kayla stated simply. Liam turned to face her fully, taking both her hands in his. Kayla, what I feel for you isn't sensible or practical. It's not about social connections or business advantages. It's about the way you challenge me to be better, to do more with the resources I have. It's about how you see the real me, not just the Hawthorne name. The sincerity in his voice made her heart race, but Kayla wasn't ready to be swept away by pretty words. Liam, I care about you, more than I expected to, honestly. But nights like tonight make me wonder if we're kidding ourselves. Our worlds are so different. They don't have to be separate worlds, he insisted. Why can't we create our own world that includes both? Because I don't want to be your charity project or your rebellion against expectations, Kayla replied softly. I need to know that what's between us can survive your mother's disapproval and the Vanessas of your world looking down on me. Liam's expression grew serious. You could never be a charity project to me, Kayla, and as for my mother's approval, I'm not seeking it. I'm 32 years old. I run one of the largest corporations in the Southeast. I think I've earned the right to choose who I want in my life. Before Kayla could respond, the terrace door opened and Vivian Hawthorne appeared. There you are, Liam. The Prestons are asking about you. George wants to discuss that property in Buckhead. Her gaze slid dismissively over Kayla. Miss Thompson, I believe the dessert buffet has been set up inside. The clear attempt to separate them wasn't lost on either Liam or Kayla. Actually, Mother, Liam said firmly, Kayla and I were in the middle of an important conversation. Please tell George I'll find him shortly. Vivian's perfect composure slipped momentarily, surprise and displeasure flashing across her features before she recovered. As you wish. Don't be too long. Appearances matter at these events. As she left, Kayla exhaled slowly. She really doesn't like me. She doesn't know you, Liam corrected. Give her time. And if she never approves? Then she'll miss out on knowing someone extraordinary, Liam said simply, lifting her hand to his lips. Now, about that dance you promised me. Kayla let herself be led back inside, still uncertain about their future but unwilling to let Vivian Hawthorne or Vanessa Kingsley dictate the terms of her relationship with Liam. Whatever came next, she would face it with the same resilience that had carried her through far worse challenges than disapproving socialites. The weeks following the gala brought a subtle shift in Liam and Kayla's relationship. Where before they had carefully navigated between their separate worlds, now they seemed determined to create something new together. Liam dove into the foster care initiative with unexpected passion, attending meetings with child welfare experts and studying outcomes from similar programs nationwide. Kayla found herself welcomed into strategy sessions at Hawthorne Tower, her practical experience valued by executives who might never have crossed her path otherwise. Their relationship began appearing in Atlanta's society pages with increasing frequency. Hawthorne heir and social worker. Unlikely romance blossoms, proclaimed one headline, accompanied by a photo of them leaving a downtown restaurant. Liam Hawthorne's new direction, business. Titan focuses on foster care announced another, featuring Liam and Kayla touring a group home facility. Does it bother you? Liam asked one evening as they relaxed in his penthouse, the city lights twinkling below them. He gestured to the tablet where the latest article about them had appeared. The publicity, I mean. Kayla considered the question, curled comfortably on his absurdly expensive couch with a glass of wine in hand. It's strange. I'm not used to having my photo taken when I'm just getting coffee. But it's not as bad as I expected. The coverage has been mostly positive, Liam acknowledged. I think you've charmed the press despite their initial skepticism. You mean despite not being an heiress or socialite? Kayla teased. Because you're authentic, Liam corrected, joining her on the couch and drawing her closer. People can sense that you're not playing some angle. It's refreshing in my world. Your mother still hates me, though, Kayla pointed out. Liam winced slightly. She doesn't hate you. She's just concerned about appearances. She sent me a dossier on appropriate attire for various social functions, Kayla deadpanned, with a note suggesting I might benefit from professional styling services. She didn't, Liam groaned. Oh, she did, complete with color-coded tabs for daytime charity events versus evening galas. Liam looked mortified. I'm so sorry. I'll speak to her. Don't bother, Kayla interrupted, surprising herself with how little Vivian's not-so-subtle criticism bothered her now. I actually kept it. Some of the information is useful, even if the delivery was condescending. You're remarkable, you know that? Liam said, studying her with an expression that made her heart skip. Most people would have run screaming from my family circus by now. Kayla laughed softly. I've dealt with far more challenging family dynamics in my work. Besides, she added more seriously, you're worth it. The simple admission hung between them, weightier than either had expected. Liam's expression softened as he leaned forward, kissing her with a tenderness that spoke of deepening feelings neither had fully voiced yet. When they parted, Liam kept his forehead pressed against hers. I want you to come to the lake house this weekend, he said quietly. Just us. No galas, no business meetings, no photographers lurking in bushes. That sounds perfect, Kayla replied, already imagining peaceful days away from both their hectic schedules. The Hawthorne Lake House turned out to be a sprawling timber and glass retreat on Lake Lanier, with a private dock, boathouse, and guest cottages scattered across several acres of wooded property. Kayla tried not to gape as Daniel drove them through the security gates and up the winding drive. This is your idea of a cabin getaway? She asked, as the house came into view. Liam had the grace to look slightly embarrassed. It's been in the family for generations. My grandfather built the original structure and my father expanded it when I was a kid. The interior was less imposing than Kayla had feared. Comfortable furniture, warm colors, and large windows that framed spectacular views of the lake. Family photos lined the hallway, showing a younger Liam fishing with his father, sailing with friends, graduating from college. You look happy here, Kayla observed, studying a photo of teenage Liam laughing on the dock, his hair wind-blown and face sunburned. Some of my best memories are from summers at the lake, Liam admitted. It was the one place where father relaxed a bit, left the business in Atlanta. He taught me to sail out there, he added, pointing through the window to the clear blue water. The weekend unfolded with a gentle rhythm. Mornings spent kayaking or hiking nearby trails, afternoons reading on the deck or swimming off the private dock. Liam proved surprisingly skilled at grilling, insisting on preparing their meals himself rather than bringing staff from the city. I didn't know billionaires could cook, Kayla teased as he flipped steaks on the second evening. Only the very special ones, he replied with mock seriousness. It's a closely guarded secret among the ultra-wealthy. Can't let the masses know we're capable of basic survival skills. Later, as they sat on the dock watching the sunset paint the lake in shades of gold and crimson, Kayla felt a sense of contentment that had been rare in her life. The instinct to protect herself, to maintain emotional distance, was gradually giving way to something deeper and more vulnerable. I'm falling in love with you, Liam said suddenly, his voice quiet but certain. I thought you should know. Kayla turned to face him, her heart pounding. Part of her wanted to deflect with humor or change the subject, old defense mechanisms from a life where attachments had often led to pain. But the openness in Liam's expression deserved honesty in return. I'm falling in love with you too, she admitted, the words simultaneously terrifying and liberating. And it scares me. Why? He asked, taking her hand. Because I've spent my whole life learning that nothing lasts. Foster homes, relationships, jobs, everything is temporary if you come from where I come from. I'm not temporary, Kayla, Liam said with quiet conviction. What I feel for you isn't going anywhere." She wanted desperately to believe him, but a lifetime of caution couldn't be overcome in a single romantic weekend, no matter how perfect. As if sensing her internal conflict, Liam didn't press for more. He simply drew her closer as they watched the last light fade from the sky, the first stars appearing above the darkening lake. Their idyllic retreat was interrupted Sunday morning by an urgent call from Kayla's office. One of her most vulnerable families was in crisis. The mother had relapsed into addiction, and the 3 children needed emergency placement. "I have to go," Kayla said, already gathering her things. "These kids know me. Trust me. I need to be there for the removal." "Of course," Liam replied without hesitation. "I'll have Daniel bring the car around." On the drive back to Atlanta, Kayla briefed her supervisor by phone, discussing placement options and support services. When she hung up, she noticed Liam watching her with an expression she couldn't quite read. "What?" she asked, suddenly self-conscious. "I was just thinking about how different our emergencies are," he replied. "When I get an urgent call, it's usually about stock prices or contract disputes. When you get one, it's about children whose entire lives are being upended." "Different kinds of responsibility," Kayla agreed. "But yours matters more," Liam said simply. "I can see that now. What I do affects balance sheets. What you do affects human souls." The observation, delivered without pretense or self-pity, touched Kayla deeply. It reflected a fundamental shift in perspective that few people from Liam's world ever achieved. When they reached the city, Liam insisted on accompanying her to the family's apartment. "I won't interfere," he promised, "but I want to understand this part of your work better." Kayla hesitated, then nodded. "Stay in the background and follow my lead." The scene that greeted them was heartbreakingly familiar to Kayla. A rundown apartment in a neglected building. 3 frightened children huddled together on a stained couch, their mother alternating between belligerence and tearful promises to do better. Police officers stood awkwardly by, clearly uncomfortable with the emotional dimensions of the situation. Kayla transformed before Liam's eyes, her voice taking on a calm authority as she spoke to both the mother and children. She knelt to eye level with the youngest, a girl of perhaps 4, explaining in simple terms what would happen next. She handled the mother's angry accusations with steady compassion, neither condescending nor enabling. "You'll come see us, right, Miss Kayla?" the oldest boy asked, as they prepared to leave with their few belongings stuffed into garbage bags, a detail that made Liam wince. "Every week," Kayla promised, giving each child a gentle hug. "And I'll bring your favorite books, remember?" In the car afterward, heading to the emergency placement foster home, Liam was uncharacteristically quiet. Only when the children had been settled with an experienced foster mother did he speak. "The garbage bags," he said as they walked back to the car. "Why were their belongings in garbage bags?" "We don't have enough duffel bags or suitcases for all the emergency removals," Kayla explained. "Budget constraints. The garbage bags are free." Liam's jaw tightened. "That's dehumanizing." "Yes," Kayla agreed simply. "It is." The next morning, every child welfare office in Atlanta received a delivery. Hundreds of high-quality duffel bags and small suitcases, each containing comfort items like soft blankets, stuffed animals, and books. The accompanying note stated simply that the donation came from the newly established Hawthorne Foster Care Initiative. When Kayla saw the delivery at her office, she texted Liam immediately, "This isn't going to fix the system." His reply came seconds later. "No, but it might make one day less awful for some kids. Baby steps." She smiled at his response, then noticed a smaller package on her desk with her name on it. Inside was a framed photograph taken at the lake house. Kayla laughing on the dock, the sunset turning her hair to copper, Liam looking at her with undisguised adoration. The simple silver frame bore a small engraved plate. "Temporary isn't the only possibility." The message was clear. Liam Hawthorne was in this for the long haul, bridging their worlds one gesture at a time. Autumn arrived in Atlanta with a welcome crispness after the sweltering summer heat. For Kayla, it brought an overwhelming caseload as families under stress often reached breaking points around the holidays. For Liam, it meant quarterly board meetings, financial projections, and increased pressure from investors concerned about Hawthorne Enterprises' new philanthropic direction. Despite their packed schedules, they had fallen into a comfortable routine over the past 4 months of dating. Weeknights often found Kayla at Liam's penthouse, where she would arrive exhausted from emotional cases to find dinner waiting and a quiet evening of comfortable domesticity. Weekends frequently involved Liam accompanying her to community centers or shelter events, his casual clothes and lack of entourage allowing him to blend in as just another volunteer. "The board is questioning the foster care initiative's budget," Liam mentioned one evening as they prepared dinner together in his state-of-the-art kitchen, "particularly the sibling group home project." Kayla paused in chopping vegetables. "It's only been 3 months. These programs take time to show measurable outcomes." "I know that," Liam replied, stirring the sauce he was preparing. "But some board members view it as a vanity project, something I'm doing to impress my social worker girlfriend rather than a sound philanthropic investment." The casual use of girlfriend still gave Kayla a little thrill, even as the rest of his statement troubled her. "Do they have specific concerns I could address?" "They want metrics, cost-benefit analyses, that sort of thing. I told them you were already collecting data on family reunification rates and placement stability." He glanced up from the stove. "I hope that's okay." "It's fine," Kayla assured him. "I'm working with the university's social work department on evaluation protocols. We should have preliminary findings by next month." Liam came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. "Have I told you lately how incredible you are?" She leaned back against him, enjoying the moment of connection amid their busy lives. "You might have mentioned it." "Well, you are," he murmured against her hair. "I don't know many people who could handle the emotional weight of your job and still have energy to battle corporate bureaucracy in their spare time." "I'm motivated," Kayla replied, turning in his arms to face him. "These programs could change outcomes for thousands of kids. Besides, I have a pretty compelling incentive." "Oh?" Liam raised an eyebrow. "What's that?" "There's this guy I'm dating," she said with a smile. "He's kind of important around town, owns buildings and stuff. I hear he has a soft spot for foster kids now." "Is that so?" Liam played along, his eyes warm with affection. "Sounds like a decent fellow." "He has his moments," Kayla agreed, rising on tiptoes to kiss him. The timer dinged, interrupting their embrace, and they returned to dinner preparations with easy companionship. Later, as they sat on the couch reviewing proposal documents for the sibling group home, Kayla's phone rang with the specialized tone she used for emergency calls. "Thompson," she answered, immediately alert. She listened for a moment, her expression growing grim. "Where are they now?" "Okay, I'll meet the officers there in 20 minutes." Liam was already reaching for her coat before she hung up. "What happened?" "Domestic violence situation. The mother's been hospitalized and there are 4 children under 10 who need emergency placement." Kayla accepted the coat with a grateful nod. "I'm sorry about dinner." "Don't apologize," Liam said firmly. "I'm coming with you." "Liam, not to interfere," he clarified. "But they'll need transportation, right? And those new duffel bags we ordered aren't at all the offices yet. I can bring some from the foundation storage." Kayla hesitated only briefly before nodding. "Meet me at this address," she said, texting him the location. "And thank you." 4 hours later, the children had been settled with an emergency foster family, and Kayla had completed the necessary paperwork. She slid into the passenger seat of Liam's car, the weight of the evening etched in the lines of exhaustion on her face. "The littlest one," she said quietly. "Did you see how she kept looking for her mom? She can't be more than 3. Liam reached across to take her hand. "You were amazing with her. That song you sang when she started crying in the car, it calmed her right down." "My foster mom used to sing it to me," Kayla admitted. when I first came to her home after being removed from my biological parents. I was 7, but I remember how it made me feel less alone." Liam was quiet for a moment, then asked tentatively, "You don't talk about your biological parents much." Kayla stared out the window at the city streets passing by. "Not much to say. My mother had untreated mental illness and substance abuse issues. My father was in and out of prison. They loved me, I think, in their way, but love isn't always enough." The simple statement hung between them, profound in its implications. "That's why I worry sometimes," she continued, her voice barely above a whisper. "About us. Our worlds are so different. Love is important, but is it enough to overcome everything else?" "It can be," Liam said with quiet conviction. "If we want it to be." He navigated the car toward his penthouse, having already established that Kayla would stay over after late-night emergencies. "What would make you feel more secure about our future?" The directness of the question surprised her. "I don't know," she answered honestly. "Time, maybe? Seeing if we can keep building this bridge between our worlds?" "Time I can give you," Liam agreed. "But I want you to know I'm certain about us, Kayla. More certain than I've been about anything." The intensity in his eyes both thrilled and frightened her. She was falling deeply in love with this man, but part of her still waited for the other shoe to drop, for his world to reject her, or for her world to become too much for him to handle. 2 days later, Kayla was working late at her office when there was a knock at the door. She looked up to find Vivian Hawthorne standing in the doorway, impeccably dressed in a designer suit that made Kayla acutely aware of her own rumpled blouse and practical slacks. "Mrs. Hawthorne," she said, rising from her desk in surprise. "Liam isn't here." "I'm aware," Vivian replied, her gaze sweeping the cramped utilitarian office with its overflowing filing cabinets and outdated computer equipment. "I was hoping to speak with you directly." Kayla gestured to the single visitor chair. "Please, sit down." Vivian perched on the edge of the chair, her posture rigid. "I'll be direct, Miss Thompson. My son appears to be quite serious about you." "We are serious about each other," Kayla corrected gently. Vivian's perfectly manicured nails tapped against her designer handbag. "Liam has always had a soft heart. It's both his greatest strength and his greatest vulnerability. He sees something that needs fixing, whether it's a struggling company or a broken social system, and throws himself into solving the problem." "I'm not a problem to be fixed, Mrs. Hawthorne," Kayla said evenly. "No, but your world is full of them," Vivian countered. "Liam has responsibilities. To the company, to our family legacy, to the hundreds of employees who depend on Hawthorne Enterprises for their livelihoods. I'm concerned that your influence is distracting him from those obligations." Kayla took a measured breath. "With all due respect, Liam is a grown man capable of balancing his personal and professional priorities, and his interest in foster care reform predates our relationship. It's connected to values he's always held." "Perhaps," Vivian allowed, "but you must recognize the challenges you would face if this relationship continues. The scrutiny, the expectations, the social obligations. It's a world entirely foreign to your experience." "I'm adaptable," Kayla replied. "And more importantly, I love your son for who he is, not for his name or wealth." Something flickered in Vivian's expression. Surprise, perhaps, at Kayla's directness. "Love is a lovely sentiment, Miss Thompson, but maintaining the kind of life Liam was born into requires more than sentiment. It requires understanding of complex social and business ecosystems that you simply haven't been exposed to." "Mrs. Hawthorne," Kayla said, her patience wearing thin. "What exactly are you here to say?" Vivian met her gaze directly. "I'm offering you an opportunity. The Hawthorne Foundation could fund a prestigious fellowship in child welfare policy. You would work with leading experts, influence legislation, effect change on a national scale. Your career would advance tremendously." "In exchange for what?" Kayla asked, though she already knew the answer. In exchange for giving my son the space to fulfill his family obligations, Vivian replied smoothly. Including an appropriate marriage that will strengthen Hawthorne Enterprises' position in the business community. Kayla felt as if all the air had been sucked from the room. You're offering me a career advancement to break up with your son. I'm offering you a chance to do greater good for more children while allowing Liam to meet the expectations that come with his position, Vivian corrected. Consider it a win-win solution. Except for the part where you assume money can buy people's feelings, Kayla observed, or that Liam would be happier in an appropriate marriage than in a relationship based on genuine connection. Vivian sighed, her composed facade slipping slightly to reveal genuine concern. You make him happy now, I won't deny that. But what about 5 years from now? 10? When the novelty wears off and you're still struggling with the constraints of his world, the constant scrutiny, the demands on his time and attention? When your work continues to expose him to the harshest realities most people in his position never have to face? The question struck uncomfortably close to Kayla's own doubts. That's for Liam and me to figure out together. Is it fair to make him choose between the world he was born to lead and a life that would require him to step away from his legacy? Vivian pressed. Because that's the choice you're ultimately asking him to make. Before Kayla could respond, her phone rang with the familiar emergency tone. She glanced at it automatically. Another crisis requiring immediate attention. Vivian stood, smoothing her already perfect skirt. Duty calls, I see. Consider my offer, Miss Thompson, for both your sakes. She placed a business card on the desk. My private number. When you're ready to discuss details, call me directly. As Vivian left, Kayla sat motionless, the emergency call continuing to ring. For the first time in her professional life, she let it go to voicemail, needing a moment to process what had just happened. Had Vivian Hawthorne articulated Kayla's worst fears, that eventually the differences in their worlds would prove too great to overcome? Or was this simply the desperate attempt of a controlling mother to direct her son's life according to her own preferences? More importantly, what would she tell Liam about this unexpected visit? Kayla didn't tell Liam about Vivian's visit. The decision gnawed at her conscience, but every time she considered bringing it up, some rational-sounding excuse would surface. He was stressed about the upcoming board meeting. They were having such a nice evening. Why create unnecessary drama when she had no intention of accepting Vivian's offer anyway? But the unspoken secret created a subtle barrier between them. Liam noticed it, the way Kayla sometimes grew distant during conversations about his family, her hesitation when he suggested weekend plans that might include his mother. Is everything okay? He asked one evening as they walked through Piedmont Park, golden autumn leaves crunching beneath their feet. You seem preoccupied lately. Just work stress, Kayla replied, the half-truth bitter on her tongue. End of the year always brings more cases, plus all the data collection for the Foundation initiative. Liam accepted her explanation, but the concerned look in his eyes suggested he wasn't entirely convinced. The guilt of deception was new territory for Kayla, who prided herself on directness and honesty. Yet something held her back, perhaps fear that confronting the Vivian situation would force larger questions about their future that she wasn't ready to answer. Meanwhile, the Hawthorne Foster Care Initiative was gaining national attention. A prominent social policy journal had published a feature on their innovative approach to sibling group preservation, and several states had expressed interest in replicating the model. Kayla found herself increasingly in the public eye, giving interviews, presenting at conferences, meeting with lawmakers. The attention was validating professionally but disorienting personally. Her photo appeared in business magazines alongside Liam's with headlines like Power Couple Revolutionizing Child Welfare and Hawthorne Social Worker Girlfriend Brings Expertise to Philanthropy. They make it sound like I'm just an extension of you, Kayla complained after a particularly condescending article referred to her as Liam's charitable project. Like my career didn't exist before we met. It's ridiculous, Liam agreed, clearly frustrated on her behalf. Anyone who's spent 5 minutes with you knows you're the expert driving this work. That's not how the world sees it, though, Kayla said, voicing a concern that had been building for weeks. To them, I'm just the girlfriend who inspired the billionaire's latest philanthropic phase. Does it matter what they think? Liam asked, taking her hand. We know the truth. The question lingered with Kayla long after the conversation ended. Did it matter? Should it? Her identity had always been firmly anchored in her work, her independence, her ability to stand on her own. Now, in the public narrative, she was becoming defined by her relationship to Liam Hawthorne. The situation came to a head at a high-profile fundraiser for the initiative, held at the Hawthorne Towers Grand Ballroom. The event had attracted Atlanta's elite along with child welfare advocates, creating an unusual mingling of worlds that mirrored Liam and Kayla's relationship. Kayla was in conversation with the state's child welfare director when she overheard a comment from a nearby group of socialites. "It's very sweet how Liam's indulging her little cause," one woman said with a patronizing smile. "Though I hear from Vivian it's just a phase. Once they're married, she'll naturally transition to more appropriate charitable interests." "If they marry," another replied with a knowing look. "Vivian is still holding out hope for the Kingsley match. She's apparently made very generous offers to ease the social worker out of the picture." Kayla froze, the conversation she was supposed to be participating in fading to background noise. The women continued, unaware of her proximity. "Well, you have to admire the girl's ambition," the first woman remarked. "From paying his dinner bill to accessing his bank account in less than a year. Quite the Cinderella story." Kayla felt a hand at her elbow and turned to find Dr. Chambers beside her, his expression suggesting he'd overheard the same conversation. "Don't give them the satisfaction of seeing you react," he murmured. "They feed on drama like vampires on blood." She managed a tight smile. "I need some air." Dr. Chambers escorted her to a quiet balcony overlooking the city, mercifully empty of other guests. "Those women are the worst of our social circle," he said apologetically. "Most people have been impressed by your work and your influence on Liam." "Have they?" Kayla asked skeptically. "Or are they just being polite to my face while speculating about my ambitions behind my back?" Dr. Chambers sighed. "There will always be people who can't conceive of relationships not based on social advantage or financial gain. It's a sad limitation of their worldview." "It's not just them," Kayla admitted, the weight of recent weeks finally breaking through her careful composure. "Vivian came to see me at my office. She offered me a fellowship, a career advancement opportunity, if I would break things off with Liam." Dr. Chambers looked genuinely shocked. I'm sorry, Kayla. Vivian has always been protective of Liam, especially since Carlton died, but this crosses a line. The worst part is, some of what she said made sense, Kayla continued, voicing doubts she'd kept buried. About the differences in our worlds becoming more apparent over time. About how I might be asking Liam to choose between me and the legacy he was born to fulfill. "That's nonsense," Dr. Chambers said firmly. "Carlton Hawthorne built his company from nothing because he wanted to create something meaningful, not because he was fulfilling some predetermined destiny. He would have wanted Liam to do the same, to build a life that matters to him, with people who matter to him." Before Kayla could respond, the balcony door opened and Liam appeared, his expression concerned. "There you are. Is everything okay?" Dr. Chambers excused himself with a gentle squeeze of Kayla's arm, leaving them alone in the cool evening air. "I overheard some unpleasant gossip," Kayla explained, deciding honesty was overdue. "About us, about your mother offering me inducements to end our relationship." Liam's expression shifted from concern to shock to anger in rapid succession. "My mother did what?" "She came to my office a few weeks ago," Kayla admitted, offered to fund a prestigious fellowship for me if I would give you space to fulfill your family obligations, including an appropriate marriage. Liam finished, his jaw tight with anger. That sounds like her. Why didn't you tell me when it happened? I don't know, Kayla said helplessly. At first I thought confronting her would only make things worse. Then it felt like too much time had passed to bring it up, and part of me was afraid. Afraid of what? That she might be right, Kayla whispered. That eventually, the differences in our worlds would become too much. That you'd resent having to choose between me and the life you were raised to lead. Liam's expression softened as he took her hands in his. Kayla, I'm not choosing between you and some predestined life. I'm choosing you and the life we can build together. A life that includes both your world and mine, your passions and mine. But the social expectations, the business responsibilities, are part of my reality, yes, Liam acknowledged. Just as emergency calls in the middle of the night and heartbreaking cases are part of yours. We navigate those things together. A burst of applause from inside indicated the formal program was beginning. Liam was scheduled to speak, but he made no move to return to the ballroom. I had a whole speech prepared, he said, still holding Kayla's hands. About the incredible work we've accomplished with the initiative. The lives changed, the systems improved. But standing here with you, I realize there's something more important I need to say. To Kayla's astonishment, Liam lowered himself to one knee, still holding her hands. I had a different plan for this, he admitted with a nervous laugh. Something more elaborate, more romantic. But I don't want to wait another day with this distance between us. Kayla Thompson, I love you. I love your compassion, your strength, your unwavering commitment to making the world better for children who have no one else to fight for them. I love how you challenge me to be more than just a name or a fortune. I love who I am when I'm with you. From his pocket he produced a small velvet box. I'm not asking you to become a society wife or to give up the work that defines you. I'm asking if you'll build a life with me, one that honors both our worlds and creates something new together. He opened the box to reveal a ring that somehow perfectly captured their relationship, neither ostentatiously flashy nor artificially modest, but elegant and distinct, with an emerald center stone that matched the green blouse she'd worn the day they met for coffee. Will you marry me, Kayla? The moment suspended between them, fraught with meaning beyond the typical proposal nerves. Kayla saw in Liam's eyes a vulnerability that matched her own, the fear of rejection, yes, but also the hope for a future neither of them had imagined before their chance encounter at Della's diner. Before she could answer, the balcony door burst open again, this time revealing a flustered event coordinator. Mr. Hawthorne, everyone's waiting for your speech? The woman froze, taking in the scene before her. Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't realize. It's fine, Liam said, not taking his eyes from Kayla's face. Tell them I'll be right there. As the door closed again, Kayla found herself at a crossroads. The proposal crystallized all her fears and hopes into a single moment of decision. Could their love truly bridge the vast differences in their backgrounds, expectations, and daily realities? Or was she setting them both up for eventual heartbreak? I need you to be sure, she said softly. Not just about loving me, but about the life this would mean. The compromises, the raised eyebrows, the constant navigation between worlds. I've never been more sure of anything, Liam replied, his voice steady despite his vulnerable position. But I need you to be sure too. I'm not asking for an answer tonight if you're not ready. Inside, the crowd had begun chanting Liam's name, unaware of the life-altering conversation happening just beyond the balcony doors. The juxtaposition was perfect, the public demanding the Hawthorne heir's attention while the man himself knelt before a social worker from the wrong side of the tracks, offering his heart without reservation. In that moment, Kayla realized the only wrong answer would be one based on fear rather than love. Yes, Kayla said, her voice soft but certain. I will marry you, Liam Hawthorne. The relief and joy that transformed Liam's face was answer enough to her lingering doubts. He slid the ring onto her finger with hands that trembled slightly, then stood and pulled her into an embrace that felt like coming home. "We should get inside," Kayla murmured against his shoulder. "They're waiting for your speech." "Let them wait another minute," Liam replied, drawing back just enough to kiss her properly, a kiss that sealed their commitment and banished the last shadows of uncertainty. When they finally returned to the ballroom, the crowd's impatience dissolved into curious murmurs at their clasped hands and matching expressions of barely contained happiness. Liam approached the podium, but instead of delivering his prepared remarks about program metrics and future initiatives, he spoke from the heart. "I came here tonight planning to tell you about the remarkable progress we've made with the Hawthorne Foster Care Initiative," he began, "about the 73 sibling groups who have remained together because of our specialized placements, about the 200 foster parents who have received advanced training in trauma-informed care, about the policy changes already implemented at the state level." He paused, his gaze finding Kayla in the crowd. Those achievements matter deeply, but what matters most is the woman who inspired them, not just by showing me the need, but by demonstrating every day what true commitment to a cause looks like. Kayla Thompson has transformed how I understand my responsibility to this community, and tonight she's agreed to become my wife. The room erupted in applause, genuine from some, politely restrained from others. Near the back, Vivian Hawthorne's expression was unreadable, her perfect posture betraying no emotion as she lifted her champagne glass in what might have been a toast or simply a gesture to hide her reaction. Later, as the event wound down and well-wishers finally gave them a moment alone, Liam broached the subject they had been avoiding. "We need to talk to my mother," he said quietly. "Together." Kayla nodded, the weight of her new emerald ring still unfamiliar on her finger. "Tonight? No time like the present." They found Vivian in the smaller reception room, conversing with several Foundation board members. If she was surprised by their approach, she hid it expertly behind a social smile. "Mother," Liam said with calm authority, "we'd like a word in private, please." The board members discreetly excused themselves, leaving the three of them in a triangle of tense silence. "I assume congratulations are in order," Vivian said, her tone carefully neutral. That was quite the dramatic announcement. "Why did you go to Kayla's office?" Liam asked directly. "Why try to buy her out of my life?" Vivian's gaze shifted to Kayla, assessing. "I see you finally told him." "Yes," Kayla replied simply. "I should have done it sooner." "You should never have had to do it at all," Liam interjected, his controlled anger evident in the tightness of his jaw. "What were you thinking, Mother?" Vivian set down her champagne glass with deliberate care. "I was thinking of your future, Liam, of the company your father built, of the responsibilities you were raised to fulfill. And you believed those responsibilities incompatible with loving Kayla?" I still believe, that marriages across such different social and economic backgrounds face unique challenges," Vivian replied. "Challenges that become more apparent over time, not less." "You're not wrong about the challenges," Kayla said, surprising both Hawthornes with her calm acknowledgement. "But you're wrong to think Liam and I aren't strong enough to face them together. And you're wrong to think I would be happier in a socially advantageous match than with the woman I love," Liam added. "Just as you would have been miserable if Grandfather had succeeded in separating you from Dad." Vivian's perfect composure faltered. "Who told you about that?" "Dad did," Liam said. "Years ago. He told me how his father threatened to disinherit him if he married the daughter of a schoolteacher instead of the banking heiress who had been selected for him, how they eloped anyway, and how eventually Grandfather came around when he saw how happy you made Dad." Tears glistened in Vivian's eyes, a vulnerability Kayla had never imagined the elegant woman capable of displaying. "That was different." "Was it?" Liam challenged gently. Or are you so determined to preserve what you see as our family's position that you've forgotten what truly made that position worth having? I don't want to see you struggle the way we did in those early years, Vivian admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. Before your grandfather reconciled with us. The doors that were closed, the invitations that stopped coming. I'm not Dad, and Kayla isn't you, Liam pointed out. Times have changed, and frankly, Mother, if there are doors that close because I've chosen to marry a brilliant, compassionate woman who has dedicated her life to helping vulnerable children, then I don't want to walk through those doors anyway. Vivian's gaze shifted to Kayla, truly seeing her perhaps for the first time. You love my son? With all my heart, Kayla answered honestly. And you understand the life you're committing to? The scrutiny, the responsibilities, the expectations? I understand that every relationship requires adaptation and compromise, Kayla replied. I'm prepared to meet Liam halfway in creating a life that honors both our worlds. After a long moment, Vivian nodded almost imperceptibly. Carlton would have liked you, she said finally. He had no patience for pretense either. It wasn't quite acceptance, but it was an opening, a small crack in the formidable wall of Vivian Hawthorne's resistance. Kayla recognized it for the significant concession it was. Thank you, she said simply. The ring suits you, Vivian added, her gaze dropping to Kayla's hand. My son has always had excellent taste. With that, she excused herself, leaving Liam and Kayla alone with the fragile promise of a possible future reconciliation. Did that just happen? Kayla asked, slightly dazed. I think my mother just gave us her version of a blessing, Liam replied with equal amazement, in her own emotionally stunted way. I'll take it, Kayla said with a small smile. Baby steps, right? The weeks that followed were a whirlwind of activity, engagement announcements, interview requests, and planning meetings for both their wedding and the expansion of the foster care initiative. They decided on a spring ceremony, intimate by Hawthorne standards but still larger than Kayla would have chosen if left entirely to her preferences. Compromise, Liam reminded her when the guest list exceeded 200. Some of these connections are important for the foundation's future. Kayla agreed, recognizing that their marriage would always involve balancing their different worlds. She drew the line, however, at Vivian's suggestion of a feature in Vogue magazine. Some parts of our life remain private, she insisted, and to her surprise, Vivian eventually conceded the point. Meanwhile, Kayla continued her casework, refusing to step back despite suggestions that the future Mrs. Hawthorne might prefer a less demanding role. Liam supported her decision completely, even as he worked with his legal team to establish boundaries that would protect their privacy and prevent their marriage from becoming a media circus. On a crisp December morning, Kayla arrived at Hope Harbor for the ribbon-cutting ceremony of its new Hawthorne wing, a state-of-the-art facility designed specifically for sibling groups and children with special needs. Gloria welcomed her with a warm hug. "Look at you," the director said, admiring Kayla's engagement ring. "From paying his dinner bill to cutting ribbons on buildings with his name? Life takes unexpected turns, doesn't it?" "It really does," Kayla agreed with a laugh. "Is everything ready for the ceremony?" "Almost. There's someone who specifically asked to see you first, though." Gloria led her to the center's small library, where Tyler, the dinosaur expert from her first volunteer night with Liam, sat reading with his mother. At 7, he had grown taller, his face losing some of its baby roundness, but his eyes lit up with the same enthusiasm when he spotted Kayla. "Miss Kayla, Mom and I have an apartment now, a real one, not at the shelter." Kayla knelt to accept his eager hug. "That's wonderful, Tyler. How do you like it?" "It's the best. And Mom got a job at the foundation. She helps with the computer stuff for the new programs." Kayla glanced up at Tyler's mother, who nodded with quiet pride. "Mr. Hawthorne's office called after that dinner service when you both volunteered. Said they needed someone with my IT background. I never thought..." She blinked back tears. "We have health insurance now. Tyler can see the specialist he needs for his learning differences." The simple statement captured everything Kayla had hoped the initiative would accomplish. Not just temporary assistance, but lasting change that allowed families to build stable futures. "I'm so happy for you both," Kayla said, hugging Tyler's mother before rising. "Will you stay for the ceremony?" "Wouldn't miss it," Tyler declared. "Mom says Mr. Liam is going to be your husband. Does that mean you'll have kids? Can they come play at our apartment?" The innocent questions made Kayla laugh. "We'll see about kids, buddy. But yes, playdates would definitely be in the future." Outside, the crowd was gathering. Liam spotted her emerging from the building and came to meet her, his face lighting up the way it always did when he saw her, as if she were the most welcome sight in his world. "Everything okay?" he asked, taking her hand. "Everything's perfect," she replied, meaning it completely. "Tyler and his mom are doing great. They have an apartment, she's working for the foundation, and he's already planning playdates with our hypothetical future children." Liam's smile turned thoughtful. "Not so hypothetical, I hope. Someday." "Someday," Kayla agreed, a warm certainty settling in her chest. "When the time is right." As they took their places for the ceremony, Kayla found herself reflecting on the extraordinary journey that had brought them here. From a rain-soaked night at Della's diner to this moment of public commitment to a shared vision, not just for their life together, but for creating meaningful change in a system that had shaped her own childhood. "Ready?" Liam whispered as they were introduced. Kayla squeezed his hand, feeling the perfect fit of their fingers interlaced, different in background, in experience, in privilege, yet aligned in all the ways that truly mattered. "Ready," she confirmed. Together they stepped forward to cut the ribbon, symbolically opening not just a new facility, but the next chapter of their unlikely love story. One that had begun with a simple act of kindness and would continue as a powerful partnership bridging two worlds that needed each other more than either had realized. Behind them, a small plaque beside the entrance captured the spirit of both their personal and professional commitment. Every child deserves a safe place to belong. Every family deserves the support to stay together. No one story is written in stone. New beginnings are always possible. Kayla couldn't have said it better herself. If you enjoyed this story, don't miss the next one. Just click on the screen